Welcome. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Ross. Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death, life is only a dream, and we are all imagination of ourselves. And here's Tom with the weather. And that's a Bill Hicks quote, and that sets the stage for this particular talk. Welcome back. And we're going to be diving into as many facets of the concept of energy as we can, and how that relates to health and wellness.
Indeed. So we'll be starting off with a couple different things. Ross is going to talk about chi and chakras and quite a few other great things. And I'll probably be focusing a lot on the homeopathics, also Bach flower remedies, and essential oils. So, and
Excellent.
their energy purposes as well.
Right. And so, I mean, fundamentally speaking, everything, even though it seems solid, is vibrating at some kind of frequency. Everything is a vibration. So, and that includes not just physical things, but instances, like experiences and situations. Everything is vibrating at a particular frequency. Even the universe itself is a massive waveform. So, yeah, keeping that all in mind. I mean, when thinking about energy and vibration. Vibration can be transferred from one medium to the next. So, for instance, people will sometimes bathe themselves in frequencies like, for instance, 528 hertz. That is considered the love frequency. And that is said to aid in DNA repair and boost overall wellness. And I've tried that myself. A lot of this is, I mean, for me, I wouldn't just talk about this. I've actually employed some of these things myself, like bathing myself in those frequencies, and I found some benefit with that. Now, as far as like fundamental like physiology and how this all relates to the human body, I mean, you have at least 7 major centers from the root chakra all the way up to the crown chakra, and all that can be found easily. There's a lot of resources, and we're going to post a lot of those below in the mentioning box there, so you can check those out if you wish. Lots of good books, lots of good things. But to start off, I mean, each chakra not only has a color associated with it, but particular frequency also. So people will bathe themselves in particular frequencies or assemblies of frequencies to help cleanse those chakras, because there's certain things called like energy barnacles, if you will. There's ways of energetic infiltration into your ambient electromagnetic field or your aura, and that can spur some sort of physical ailment. It can make people sick. It can make people like literally crazy. And it is said that that the field is actually a external manifestation of the mind as well. So literally, it's how the communication between the mind and your external environment can be facilitated. So there's a lot of perspective on this, and I implore you to search into this and read a lot about it, because it's a fundamental aspect of you. And I mean, when you get down to it, it's all wrapped into the quantum field, and how we contribute to the formation of the universe, how our emotions translate to an electromagnetic frequency that in a way will provoke certain outcomes to take place, and it's all associated with your thought process. And people like Gregg Braden, for instance, there's a really good talk that keeps getting removed from YouTube, and you know, who knows why, but I mean, people get blackballed and people get removed from YouTube for all sorts of reasons these days. I mean, when this is being shot, there's a lot of censorship going on in the land of the free. Where freedom of speech is extremely guarded and sacred.
When it comes to frequencies and things, a lot of things can affect that we don't always think of. I grew up in a family where we generally believe that like what is said can actually affect a person. But I just didn't realize to the extent until I studied under a professor who he taught muscle testing. So those of you who don't know what that is, our body reads signals that we don't always understand that we're reading. So usually it will probably be a full talk on something like this, but just brief overview. Basically, you have to ask yes and no questions. A lot of chiropractors use it. A lot of natural health professionals use it. There are even machines now that utilize that as well, to be able to read those frequencies to get the answers. But he actually tested he brought a volunteer up to the front. He tested her overall health frequency. Then without telling her what was going to happen, he sent her out of the room and had somebody stand at the door to let her know when she could come back in. And he told everyone in the room, he said, even if you're not that type of person, you have to say one negative thing about her. So everyone in the room went around and said one thing negative about her, whether it be, well, I think she should have wore a different color. It would have been better with her, skin tone or whatever it was that went around. Everyone, it was really surfacey because nobody really knew each other at that point. They brought her back in and they tested her overall health frequency. She had no idea what had happened. She had no idea what anyone had said. She'd never even heard it. It was just what the frequencies that were then in the room. They tested her frequency again, and it had gone down significantly. Enough to, and she was just like, what? What's going on? I don't understand. And he goes, I want you to leave the room one more time. She's like, okay, nervous this time. She heads out of the room. I'm sure she was thinking, is it going to get worse? Again? And he just had everyone say something positive about her, something we actually liked about her, or something that, we first noticed when we saw her. That was a positive thing. So we went around the room. We all said something very positive. And she came back in, still a little nervous because she wasn't sure what's going on. And he tested her overall frequency again. And it was not only back to what it had been, the first time, it was actually better. Not quite significantly better, but it was definitely better. Enough to where you could tell. So our words towards people and other people's words towards us, whether we know them or not, can also affect us.
But the emotional aspect, typically someone's energy frequency, and some people have mentioned it as being okay, your ambient electromagnetic field is oscillating at a particular frequency. The higher the frequency, the more, or the faster it's oscillating. Also, Gregg Braden has mentioned that the energy frequency can be viewed as okay, you have a waveform superimposed on top of your DNA, and the more your frequency, the higher your frequency, the more aspects of your genetic structure you're activating. So the higher your frequency, the more genetic structure you're activating, essentially the more control or the more impact you have on how things unfold, essentially. And all of that is largely emotionally governed until you decide not to let it be. That's the big thing, and that's where meditation can come into play. I highly recommend checking out meditation, figuring out how to do that. I mean, it's like riding a bike. Once you learn, it's hard to forget. Eckhart Tolle, if that's how you pronounce his name. I don't want to ruin people's names, but that's how I think you pronounce it. His Power of Now, I listened to the tape. It's a book, but it's on tape, and it's a good guide, and it's how I first encountered a meditative state. Absolutely fantastic. I actually laughed a little bit when I first encountered the meditative state. It was really intense. I actually didn't think it was actually real. I thought it was actually something people were like, oh, I'm meditating, see? And no, it's legit. Your mind clears, your focus. It's a whole event, so I highly recommend checking into that. But back to the energy frequency associated with emotion, never be a slave to your emotional state. People can tell you things like simple statements that bring you down. You then become a slave to other influences much more. So it's very important to kind of disconnect your emotional state from your electromagnetic expression, and all of that takes practice. Like, you literally have to practice that, and every time you do that, every time you consciously raise your frequency, even in the face of absolute anger or sadness, you just become that much more fortified against those kind of influences having an impact on your life, literally on your progression. And then we start getting into the quantum aspect of it all, and it's a little too much for this particular video. We may get into that with a future video. But that starts to get into like relative position across the quantum matrix of all possible situations and occurrences in reality. Fundamentally speaking, you never want to let your emotional state govern your electromagnetic expression, because you leave yourself wide open to be exploited and hindered. Like, your optimum trajectory can be not just skewed but completely folded, and you deserve better than that.
Yeah.